Hey guys, tonight we're stepping quietly into the sunlit courtyards of ancient Egypt. Not through the grand temples or royal tombs, but somewhere far more intimate, the laundry yard. Yes, laundry, the kingdom of starch and smooth linen, where every tunic, kilt, and headdress had to be crisp enough to impress a god, or at least not offend one. You're there now, sandals half buried in the warm, powdery sand. The Nile is just beyond earshot, and someone nearby is rhythmically slapping wet cloth against a worn flat stone. The scent of soapwort and dust lingers faintly in the air. Around you, linen flaps gently from drying racks, hundreds of long, white rectangles like slow-moving sails catching the breeze. This might not sound exciting, and you're right, it isn't. You probably wouldn't survive a single shift in this sun. But it's calming in its own way, repetitive, predictable, peaceful. The kind of day where the biggest drama is a crease in a ceremonial robe. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is over there. I always love seeing that. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You start in the heat of a mid-morning sun, walking slowly between lines of drying linen. Some are pearly white, others a soft beige, never dyed, because dye was for wool, and linen was pure, sacred even. It clings in odd ways when it's wet, like papyrus leaves slapped onto your legs. But once dry and properly pressed, it rustles softly, whispering its importance with each step. And these aren't just any tunics. They're the everyday wear of the entire Nile Valley. Linen was everywhere, from palace halls to field huts. You pass a young boy carefully laying out another tunic, smoothing it with a polished river stone. It's warm to the touch, and when he finishes, the fabric looks like it's been ironed, because, well, it has, sort of. Just not with an iron. Historians still argue whether the ancient Egyptians ironed in the way we mean today, but what's clear is they cared a lot about their appearance. Creased linen meant laziness, dirt, a spiritual offense. Clean, smooth garments were your passport to respectability. Whether you were petitioning a god or haggling over grain, you did it in crisp clothes. A low stone basin burbles nearby with Nile water, its surface slicked with suds. You dip your hand in, it's slightly gritty, not quite what your modern laundry machine would approve of, but still functional. A woman nearby stirs a bundle of cloth with a stick. She wears a linen headscarf, neatly folded, and hums something low and repetitive. Probably the same tune sung for generations, a rhythm to keep her work slow and steady. The tools are simple. Flat scrubbing boards, worn smooth by centuries of use. Soap made from natron, sometimes mixed with plant oils. If you're lucky, someone splurged on imported palm oil and the scent clings to your tunic all day. Oh, and starch. Yes, even in the ancient world, people loved their garments crisp. They made starch from wheat or barley water, left to settle and thicken. Dip the cloth, let it dry in the sun, then rub it down with a warm stone. Presto, ancient ironing. You catch sight of a girl doing just that, rocking a heavy, curved rock gently over the edge of a temple priest's robe. There's a sort of meditative rhythm to it. Dip, dry, smooth. Dip, dry, smooth. The stone makes a low grinding sound, satisfying, almost hypnotic. The linen beneath it gives slightly, the fibers loosening just enough to flatten. She pauses to wipe sweat from her brow, then returns to her work. You pass through a shaded section of the courtyard, where robes reserved for religious ceremonies are being treated with even more care. Each one is assigned to a particular deity's priest, and they must be utterly flawless. No wrinkles, no stains. The woman in charge here inspects each cloth like a hawk. You watch her lift one, squint, mutter disapproval, then hand it back for repolishing. She is, for lack of a better term, the ancient Egyptian equivalent of a dry cleaning manager with very high standards. One odd thing catches your eye, a curved metal hook dangling from a nail. Not iron because that was still rare, but bronze. Too soft for heavy work, but possibly used to tease out stubborn wrinkles from pleats. Or maybe it was a laundry token, or a weight for holding down corners in the breeze. Historians still argue whether these were tools, talismans, or just junk. But here, everything has its place. Even ambiguity. The sun climbs higher. Flies buzz lazily in the corners. Somewhere, a child laughs, probably playing with water and getting scolded for wasting it. You find yourself leaning against a warm wall, lulled by the repetition, the scent of earth and soap and sun-baked cloth. It's not just laundry, it's ceremony, it's culture, it's survival. Imagine walking through the desert in wrinkled linen. You'd be judged by your neighbors and possibly the gods. But here, in this courtyard, there's pride, there's order. There's something oddly soothing about a society that treats a tunic like a sacred object. You let your eyes rest on a sheet of linen stretched between two wooden poles. It's fluttering gently, casting a dappled pattern across the ground. The air smells faintly of crushed flax. You close your eyes for a moment. You're not sure if it's the heat, the rhythm, or the hum of distant voices, but your muscles begin to relax. You could spend the entire day here, folding, smoothing, watching the linen float like ghosts in the breeze. And really, who needs excitement when you have freshly pressed linen and the warm silence of ancient sunshine? You shift slightly, barefoot now, your toes curling into the sun-warmed dust of the courtyard. The linen under your fingertips is rough, dry, yet almost silky, stiff from the starch but soft from wear. You pluck a stray thread and watch it flutter away, caught in a barely there breeze rolling off the Nile. It's time to understand why this fabric, more than any stone monument or painted wall, clothed an entire civilization. Flax. That's where it starts. Not the leafy kind that lines your supermarket cereal aisle, but the tall, fibrous version that ancient Egyptian farmers cultivated with near religious devotion. Grown along the fertile floodplains of the Nile, it was harvested in bundles, soaked in water until soft, then pounded, combed, and spun into thread. The process was long, tedious, and best done with the patience of a saint, or a teenager who's grounded with nothing else to do. But this was more than just agriculture. The ancient Egyptians didn't wear wool. Wool was considered impure, irritating, and generally bad news, especially if you planned to hang around a temple. Linen, by contrast, was pure, breathable, blessed by the gods. It let the body sweat and the skin breathe in the merciless heat of the desert. No surprise, then, that linen production became a national obsession. You weren't truly Egyptian unless you had at least one pristine linen kilt tucked away for sacred duties or funerals. Historians still argue whether linen's importance came from its functionality or its symbolism. Was it the comfort, the convenience, or the crisp aesthetic that made your silhouette look just a bit more divine? You walk alongside a drying line now where lengths of freshly washed linen hang like wind chimes for the eyes. The longer strips were for wrapping mummies. Yes, that's right, the dead got the best stuff. A good quality shroud could take days to prepare. And here you are, marveling at the living's version: tunics, loincloths, pleated skirts, headbands, and even tiny linen amulets sewn into children's clothes to protect them from bad dreams. Practicality meets superstition. You reach out and trail your fingers across a particularly fine piece, thin enough to see the skin beneath, but dense enough to shimmer under the sunlight. This was high-quality linen, possibly temple grade. In fact, you vaguely recall reading that linen was sometimes used as currency. Yes, literal fabric money. Wages, offerings, even taxes could be paid in cloth. So imagine showing up to your job with a tunic that wasn't pressed. That would be like paying your rent with crumpled bills covered in sandwich crumbs. Still, not all linen was equal. There was coarse linen for commoners, thick and scratchy and prone to fraying. And then there was byssus, a legendary superfine linen, almost translucent, reserved for royalty and sacred rituals. Producing byssus was an art form, and only the most skilled weavers, usually women, could manage the thread's whisper-thin consistency. You pass a low work table where a flax bundle lies, drying under the sun. A young apprentice brushes it with a comb made of fishbone, separating the fibers like long, golden hair. She hums to herself, something off-tempo but calming, and glances at you with a look that says, "Don't touch that. It took all morning to clean." A little further, you find someone spinning flax into thread with a hand spindle. It looks impossibly slow. The spindle twirls like a lazy top, and the thread, fine, fragile, spools out from her fingers like magic. Each movement is gentle, deliberate. You try it for yourself and snap the thread instantly. She chuckles. You move on, slightly embarrassed. Around the courtyard, baskets overflow with folded linens. Some are destined for market, others for temple rituals. The priests will later purify them by waving incense over the cloth. murmuring prayers about cosmic order and personal hygiene. And if you listen closely, you might hear a mother in the background scolding her son for tracking muddy footprints across her just-washed sash. You pause near a small shrine carved into the stone wall. An offering of flowers sits beside it, dried blue lotus, maybe, and a miniature figurine holds a tiny folded square of linen in its lap, a doll-sized tunic, for the gods, or perhaps for a deceased child. In Egyptian culture, cleanliness and protection were intertwined. Smooth linen wasn't just tidy, it was magical, a ward against chaos. Even the dead, wrapped in layer after layer, required their garments to be carefully ironed, polished, and perfumed. After all, you don't show up in the afterlife looking like you rolled out of bed. And speaking of perfume, the scent in the air changes as you pass a bowl filled with sweet-smelling oil. Linen was often scented using blends of myrrh, cinnamon, or desert flowers. One tablet even references a linen room in the palace that was more perfumery than closet. Scent, softness, starch. It was a full sensory experience, long before fabric softeners came in plastic jugs. You catch a whiff of natron drying in the sun. It's a pungent, slightly salty aroma. Not unpleasant, just ancient. They used this mineral for washing, purifying, and even preserving bodies. So yes, the same stuff that scrubbed your tunic also embalmed Aunt Nefertari. You stop again, crouching by a cloth that's been patched, not neatly. A little slant. One corner of the courtyard has become a resting place, an impromptu nap zone for tired washers. You sink onto a cushion, surrounded by the gentle fluttering of linen above, like sleepy wings. The hum of distant chatter becomes white noise. You feel the warmth in your bones. You hear a wooden spindle fall and roll slowly across the floor. And now, without meaning to, you wonder what it would be like to spend your whole life doing this. Spinning, soaking, pressing, folding. Would it get boring? Or would it be grounding? In a world full of crocodiles, sun gods, and unpredictable floods, maybe laundry was the one thing you could control. And perhaps that's why linen meant so much. Not just a fabric, a ritual, a rhythm, a reminder that even in the dust and heat, you could carve out something clean, something smooth. You let your eyes close for a second longer this time. The linen flaps above you like sails drifting through time. You open your eyes to a slightly cooler breeze. The sun has shifted, casting longer shadows across the stone-paved courtyard. It's late afternoon now, and the work continues, quieter than before. You rise slowly, stretch, and wander toward the shade where folded linen rests in tidy piles, sorted by purpose, size, and social class. Today's fashion, in the land of pharaohs and pyramids, is all about the pleat. And no, not the fussy accordion ones that haunt your old-school uniform memories. These pleats are subtle, architectural, carefully arranged to cascade down a kilt or a gown like waves frozen mid-movement. You trail your fingers along one, feeling the ridges like soft papyrus columns. High fashion in ancient Egypt didn't require an overflowing closet. Most people, except maybe high officials and royalty, owned only a few garments at a time. But it wasn't about quantity. It was about appearance, presentation, smoothness. You wore your status in your stitches. A priest walks past, draped in blindingly white linen, the folds in his robe so crisp they look sculpted. His bald head glints in the light, oiled and perfumed. You wonder how long it took to press that robe this morning. Probably hours. Maybe an entire laundry team was involved. Historians still debate whether this obsessive attention to linen was purely aesthetic or deeply spiritual. The truth is, in Egypt, there wasn't much separation between the two. To look clean was to be clean, and to be clean was to be worthy, of gods, of kings, of burial and sacred ground. Linen wasn't just for warmth or modesty, it was for moral alignment. Across the courtyard, a group of workers laugh as they fold and refold a particularly troublesome head covering. It slips out of shape each time, and one of them finally throws their hands up in surrender. Linen had a mind of its own, especially in humid weather. You smirk, imagining a very ancient argument over whether that pleat was supposed to face left or right. There's something charming about the way fashion here is both simple and symbolic. A plain tunic could be elevated with a perfectly symmetrical hem, a decorative sash, or a carefully pressed pleat that mimics lotus petals. Even colors, though rare in linen, could matter. Occasionally you'd see a cloth dyed with indigo or ochre, mostly for special events or ceremonies. But 99% of the time, white was the goal. The brighter, the better. Dazzling purity. You notice a robe hanging from a peg in the wall, clearly ceremonial. The pleats are pressed to near perfection, and the hem is embroidered with golden thread, an uncommon touch, reserved for temple dancers or palace singers. The thread gleams in the waning light, almost humming with still energy. The garment isn't just worn, it performs. There's even record of elite women starching their gowns so thoroughly they rustled audibly when they walked, a sort of status-driven ASMR. Soft footsteps and hard linen. The sound alone could announce your rank in a room,